After 2 crashes of new Boeing jet, pilot training now a focus. The chief executive of Boeing backed down on Wednesday. He called President, "It was a stark reversal for Boeing, an industrial juggernaut that has enjoyed a decade of rapid growth and has deep ties in Washington." Just the day before, the plane, the 737 MAX, was deeply rooted in the company's psyche, a reflection of its engineering prowess and its enviable safety record. But it was also the stakes for Boeing are high, with 4,600 pending orders that promise to bring in hundreds of billions of dollars. All that is at risk. One area of focus is whether the training procedures on Boeing's jet, greenlight by the Federal Aviation Administration, left pilots unprepared to deal with new software on the plane. When the plane was although the investigations are continuing, preliminary evidence and data suggest potential similarities between the crashes, raising questions about the new software on which pilots weren't trained. There could have been when Airbus announced in 2010 that it would introduce a new fuel-efficient and cost-effective plane, Boeing rushed to get out its own version. The strategy depends. For many new airplane models, pilots train for hours on giant, multi-million-dollar machines, on the ground versions of cockpits that mimic the flying experience and teach them new features. But in the case of them, we would have liked to have had a simulator from the start, said John Weeks, the president of the Southwest Airlines Pilots Association. But it wasn't as Boeing pushed to get the plane done, flight simulators designed specifically for the MAX weren't ready. Greg Bowen, they were building the airplane and still designing it, Mr. Bowen said. The data to build. When United was set to take delivery of the 737 MAX in 2017, a group of pilots put together training materials without ever flying the aircraft or a full simulator. James LaRosa, in addition to a 2-hour iPad training course from Boeing, he and colleagues used their experience in the cockpit to create a 13-page handbook on the differences between the MAX and its predecessor, including changes to displays and the engines. The training material. When you find out that there are systems on it that are wildly different that affect the performance of the aircraft, having a simulator is part of a safety culture, said Dennis Tajur, a spokesman for the American Airlines Pilot Union and a 737 pilot. It can be the different. Boeing said in a statement that the 737 MAX was certified in accordance with the identical FAA requirements and processes that have governed certification of all previous new airplanes and derivatives. The FAA's aircraft certification processes are well established and have consistently produced safe aircraft designs, the regulator said in a statement. After the Lion Air crash that killed all 189 people aboard, the new software on the plane became an area of focus for investigators and pilots. The new engines on the planes were bigger, part of Boeing's competitive push to make it more fuel efficient. To compensate for. After the crash, it was clear that pilots of the 737 MAX had not been fully informed about the new software. Shortly after, the first thing we talked about was the break of trust, said Mr. Tajur, the American Pilot Union spokesman. We called it According to Mr. Tajur, Boeing officials told Americans pilots that they hadn't mentioned the new software because they didn't want to inundate them with information. The union told Boeing that it was now demanding simulators for its pilots. We don't really care. Pilots at American Airlines, who began asking for simulators for the new model as soon as they started flying the planes, ramped up their requests after the Lion Air crash. Boeing officials promised American and Southwest pilots a software fix within several weeks, but added that extra training was not necessary. Notifying the airlines agreed. After those meetings, Representative Peter A. DeFazio, Democrat of Oregon and the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, said he asked FAA officials after the Lion Air crash why more substantial training was not required. I said, this is essentially a different airplane, and how is it that it was certified without requiring pilot retraining? Mr. DeFazio, the FAA bases its rules for training around the typical experience of a pilot in the United States, explaining that the average caliber, skill, and training of U.S. pilots is extensive, with countless hours of flight time and training both on the flight deck and in simulators. But other countries, overseas, pilots in some cases have a tiny fraction of the training that our pilots have, Mr. DeFazio said. Our pilots may after the Ethiopian Airlines crash that killed 157 people, Boeing made calls to airlines, reassuring them that it was taking the situation seriously. Still, we are confident in the safety of the 737 MAX, Mr. Muhlenberg wrote in an email to employees on Monday, and in the work of the men and women who design and build it. The tragedy consumed Mr. Trump, according to a person familiar with his thinking, who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. He talked about it after his first call with Mr. Muhlenberg. Mr. Trump was leaning against banning the flights, according to the person. But aides urged instead of letting the FAA announce the grounding, Mr. Trump blurted it out during an event about drug trafficking. The safety of it is unclear when the planes will start flying again. The company but Boeing isn't planning to overhaul its training procedures. And neither the FAA. While many pilots in the United States are still committed to the plane, they are pushing for Boeing to be more proactive. Would I go out and fly one today and put my family on it? Yeah, I would. And airlines are getting flight simulators, even if they aren't required by regulators. One flight it will be months before pilots in the United States can use them. Hours after the Ethiopian Airlines crash, Mr. Tajir, the American Airlines Union spokesman, spoke with the carrier and asked for an update on the simulator request. The reply United Airlines, the world's third largest carrier, was told that it has to wait until 2020 for one. Today, reporting was contributed by Amy Tsang, Keith Bradshaw, James Glanz, Shasta Darlington, and Ian Austin.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.